Hello and welcome to the second video in this beginner series programming in Python 3. So this video then we're going to have our first look at variables. A variable is simply a location in the memory to store some information. That might be a number, might be some text, might be a decimal, something like this, but somewhere in the memory where we've stored some piece of information. And it's called a variable because what we store can vary, it can change. So I'm open here with the command prompt, as I was at the end of the last video. I'm going to type cd just to show you where I am. I'm in ch2_input, and if I just do dir, you can see that I have a file already made in there called ch2_input.py. I'm going to type cls to clear the screen. And notepad here, I've got my ch2_input.py open, ready to program some code. So let's make a new variable. To do this, we simply need to define a name for the variable. Now, when it comes to declaring the variable name, there are some rules in Python. So it needs to begin with a letter or an underscore. It can't be the same name as one of the built-in functions or variable types in Python, and you'll get an error if you try to do that. Variables are always case sensitive. I think you can make the variable name pretty much as long as you like, but obviously once you start getting above 10 letters or so, or it'll start to get a little bit complicated. And really it's good practice to try and make the name of the variable something that makes it obvious what it is. So I'm going to make a new variable and I'm going to call this word, and it's going to be some text, and this variable now will point somewhere in the memory for me, and I need to set the value that I want to have here. So I'm going to make some text here and just say this is a word, and now that's my word variable. I'm going to save this, and the program doesn't do anything at the moment. What I've done is I've defined under the variable name word at a location in memory, I'm saving here what's known as a string. So if I go into the Python standard library and have a look what a string is, it's actually a text sequence, it says. And it says textual data in Python is handled with string objects, so str objects or strings. Important to note is strings are immutable. And what does that mean? Immutable means that the value, once you've declared it, cannot actually be changed. If you do some kind of modification, what will happen is behind the scenes Python will take the existing one and make you a new one with a modification that you wanted. And the important thing to note here is there's lots of ways of declaring strings. You can do it with the single quotes as I've just done, you can do it with the double quotes, and you can do with 3 single quotes or 3 double quotes. You might ask, why would I want to choose between those? Well, the single quotes is good because it allows you to use double quotes inside the string itself. And likewise, double quotes allows you to put single quotes inside the string itself. So if I go back to the code, imagine I have this string here, this is a word, and I'm able to print word. Let's just save and run this program. We can see this is a word. Now imagine I want to say this isn't a word. So I will put the N''T. But now you can see actually from the colouring from Notepad that it's interpreted this first part here as the string, and the rest is all grey. And in fact, if we try and run the program now, we get an error because the syntax is invalid. Our string is finished here, and then we've got some strange text on the end. So to get around this, what we can do is we can put some double quotes on this, and then the string is encased in these double quotes, and the single apostrophe then works if I rerun the program. We also have the option of making triple quotes, as we saw on the Python website. And this allows us to do what's called multi-line. Python code, 99% of the time, is written on single lines. So it's line by line instruction interpretation. The triple quotes here, either single or doubles, allow us to actually go across, span across multiple lines. And if I just run this program and print it, you'll see that the white space that we had here, it gets included in our string as well across the multiple lines. Now if I try to put some single quotes around this and run the program, I get an error because I've ended my instruction here and the instruction hasn't been understood. So to go multiple line, I need the triple quotes. And that actually word here is the first variable we've written on the course then. We can also change the value of word because it's variable, so I can assign something else to word. Just put dog and try and print that again. And now I get hello and dog. And the other thing I can do with my variable, I can always have a look what type my variable is. I've just said we're working with the str, the string type, so I can print out here what the type is. And to do that in Python, I just type type, open brackets, then word. I'll just make some space around this so it's clearer to see. And this type is a built-in function, a part of Python, and much like print, and this will print to the console then what type our word is. So I'll just clear the console, rerun the program, and it tells us here that we have a type of class string. So here it's telling us it's a string. And this type comes in very, very handy in the future when you're not sure what kind of types of variables you've been processing. So let's make this a little bit more interesting then, and use a variable, and let's get some input from the user. Now inside the built-in functions, there's a function called input. If we have a quick look, we've got a parameter prompt, and it says if it's present, so it's an optional parameter, we don't need it. It's written to the standard output without a trailing new line. In other words, we will type directly after the prompt. So let's see what happens then when we use input. So I'm going to say name is equal to input, and then let's write please enter your name and an angular bracket. And what will happen here now is, according to the documentation, we will get a prompt, please enter your name with the angled bracket, and then whatever we type, and then when we hit enter, will be stored in the variable name. So first of all, let's just print the type of name. And now let's actually use our variable name. So let's run the program here then, and I'll enter my name. And now I get that the type is of class string and that my name is Richard. Now I get a double space here because remember that the separator in print is actually a space, so I'll take this space off here and rerun. I'll put John this time, and I get your name is John. Now with a string variable, what I'm also able to do is I'm able to use something called an operator to make a new bigger string. Let's make a new variable called full text, and we're going to make that equal to your name is, and then we're going to add on, so the operator to add, name. And Python behind the scenes, if we're adding numbers together, will give you the sum of the two numbers, but if we add two strings together, the plus will actually concatenate the strings for us. So now I can print full text. Let's run the program. And I get printed full text, which is your name is John. And a shortcut for doing this, I could also just copy this here and not even make a new variable and just print as an object here in the print statement, your name is, and then name like this. And this is something that you'll more commonly see, this way of doing it with strings, than separating things by the comma in the print statement this way. And this is the way that I'll most often do it. Later on in the series, we'll see some other ways of how we can manipulate and build up strings. One last little thing I'd like to do, just to show you a little bit more about the standard library. We have here our string object here in the Python documentation. And here we've got a whole section on string methods. And you can see here there are loads and loads of things that we can do with strings. So there's something here that if we take our string and have is alpha, it'll tell us whether the strings are alphabetic and there is at least one character. Is decimal, is digit, is lower. There are all sorts of things we can do. And I'm going to use one called upper here. And it says it returns a copy of the string with all cased characters converted to uppercase. So what I'm going to do here is, the name type I know is a string, but I'm going to do name and then dot upper. And what actually will be printed out then is not actually name, it's a new string where name, all the letters have been converted to uppercase. So what I should get is my name shouted back at me. And now you can see your name is Richard shouted back at me in response. So that's a very quick overview then of how to get user input. The next few videos we're probably going to play around with this to have some interactivity and add more variables and things like this. But really important is just to get the idea of how it's done, how variables are declared, what the rules are, that we can very easily see the types of the variables. And then we can, if you look in the standard library, you can find some functionality very, very quickly, all listed there, of things that we can do with the various types that we have built into Python. And they come with all sorts of functions and fun stuff that we can do with them. So hopefully that video was clear. Any comments, questions, of course, they're welcome as always below the video. Otherwise, thanks very much for watching and see you in the next one.